Hello, welcome to the Impersonal Opinion Podcast, the podcast where we share our opinions and don't take anything personally, or at least we try not to. um, and I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here with wsdtime, David Joseph, George Ortega, and if anyone else is added during the call, they may join us too. Um, but we're going to be talking a little bit about capitalism. WSD suggested talking about capitalism. All right, that sounds good. So maybe WSD should start and tell us what he thinks about capitalism.
Well, I think, the simple answer is, I feel that causes a lot of problems. Maybe back in the industrial era, yes, it was needed, but now just I see so many problems with it.
Yeah, and maybe we should define what capitalism is compared to other economic systems.
The systems that work that like a resource-based economy, like these trying to do with the Fizz project.
Yeah, that's a great comparison because it's almost the exact opposite.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, the definition says it's an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. I don't agree with the last part though, because it's not like it's like the other options aren't necessarily that the state controls things. It's not just a choice between private ownership and state ownership. I think there are also scenarios in which you don't have either of those things. So yeah, that's kind of like a false dichotomy, I guess.
Let me
So fire
present
the
a
guy who
couple,
wrote that,
at least,
basically.
of problems that I see with capitalism. You guys probably see the same ones. Um, One relates to climate change, and it's about like we produce, you know, a lot of products. There's a lot of repetition of efforts in producing products. It's like, basically, I think we have to perhaps produce less until we can like basically manufacture what we need to with cleaner energy. Um, the bigger, I think, problem is is not so much
Getting people to go along with it.
right. Well, but this is not so much a problem in capitalism itself, but like in free market capitalism that's very unregulated and that's tied to the politics. What happens is like um, in most of the capitalist systems of the world, the people who earn the most money from selling products control the government, you know. And so, like, why should a person who's successful at selling products, why should we believe that they would also be successful in running things? And actually, the exact opposite is true because, like, as people buy elections, through campaign contributions and lobbying contributions and stuff, um, they wield more and more power, and then like it's no longer democracy. And again, these people who have at least control the American democracy, they're among the group that is most preventing us from, for example, addressing climate change, but not just climate change, so many other things that need to be addressed.
Yeah. I had an interesting thought. Actually, it's a little kind of a political thought, which is scary for someone like me. But here's an interesting idea. One way of getting money out of politics, even though obviously there needs to be a lot of effort towards that, is there ought to be like the way I think campaigns could actually go would actually be more along the lines of the candidates are questioned by the public, Yeah, here's the thing about it though is if candidates are questioned in places and they are questioned on topics that they don't know are necessarily going to be asked. And the main means on which America elects is not based on a whole bunch of campaigns of signs and videos and media, even though there will still be some of that stuff, I imagine, would just be an idea where they're questioned without knowing what they'll be questioned on. Therefore, like what they say has to be their thoughts because there can't be pre prepared, memorized speeches as much as candidates answering questions such as, well, how will you address climate change?
Well, Chandler, what you were saying, in other words, with climate change, that is that is what press conferences are about, and so that's one possibility. The debates are about that also. Generally speaking, I don't think the candidates get, from the correspondence a list of the questions they're going to be asked. So it is a good way to hear what the candidates say. Now, naturally, these candidates are always coached in their answers. They've got advisors, so they pretty much know what they're going to say. Once in a while they get surprised, but it is pretty scripted.
Yeah, and I find that a little bit sad because what I feel is like it's all some game or some charade where people are answering questions not from what they believe and what they actually plan to do if elected, but based on what sounds good to an audience and the psychology behind that.
Yeah, it's all about trying to be popular to the people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep, pretty much.
Absolutely, and I mean, like, generally speaking, actually, what the candidates say they will do, they sometimes try to work on, but we never get the whole story. For example, what is that?
Will, you've got your Minecraft on. We can hear your Minecraft.
Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I forgot.
All right, so yeah, I think one of the problems is that I lost my train of thought.
And we were talking about the candidates, how they were being dishonest. Yeah.
Oh, right, right. Thank you, Will. So, like, all right. So, the candidates like Hillary might say, "This is what I'm going to do." For example, about the environment, climate change, or whatever. This is my position and all. But the problem is that anybody who knows politics knows that as long as the Republicans have more than 40 senators in the Senate, they can shut down every one of Hillary's proposals, for climate change. And that's what's happened over the last 8 years. So, like, I think we would benefit from a bit more truthfulness from
The big
Hillary and
money
the
in their
Democrats saying,
pockets.
listen, we would like to do these things, but unless you vote a lot of Republican senators out of office, and even like a lot of House members, stuff's not going to happen because they're just going to oppose it.
Yeah, that sounds almost like the senators becoming a more important thing almost than even what president gets elected.
Well, Chandler, yeah, I mean, they become as powerful as in other words, 40 senators could shut down the entire president's agenda. I mean, the president can still appoint judges and do some executive orders but for most proposals, most, legislation, 40 senators through the filibuster can shut down the president's entire agenda. Yeah.
So that's like a case of the government's being run by the opinions of people rather than like if they have any kind of hard evidence, like if we do this, then this good thing will happen. Rather than that, it's being run by people with just opinions, basically.
Even more than that, for example, the Republicans, they don't like government. Small government, the smaller, if the government was non-existent, they'd probably be happiest. So, for example, it's been what, 4 months since we should have replaced Scalia in the Supreme Court. The Republicans haven't allowed it. So, like, they just refuse to let things happen because they're generally on the wrong side with most of the public on what happens, but they're on the right side with their base. So I mean, one answer is to end the filibuster. If we end the filibuster, um, then things could begin to happen.
Yeah, this is really kind of interesting. And like since we were originally talking about like the problems of capitalism, that's kind of our topic. It's kind of interesting because the problem with like a free market based type of thing is that isn't it basically where the government can't interfere with the way businesses run, and so they can just charge as much as they want for products, and it's sort of like wouldn't even a free market type of system mean that they would disapprove of having a minimum wage?
Chandler, that's exactly what it means. You know,
But
the big
Exactly. Yep.
Business can do whatever they want. With this Wall Street stuff, they can trade whether they want, even if, whether it's a danger to the economy or
Hmm.
whatever.
Like in China, where they're being paid 70 cents an hour.
Although they do believe that the wages will go up somehow. I don't know how that works, but apparently the wages will go up in a free market.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even though knowing these companies, the opposite will happen.
Yeah, like do they have evidence that eliminating the minimum wage would actually increase wages?
Nope, that's going to the whole situation with China. It's just going to create more poverty, and just more poverty, more crime will go up.
Yeah, and the problem is unless people have economic theories with evidence to support them, rather than just people's opinions on the matter, then there's no chance for progress. So it has to be based on actual proof that a system will improve things.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, I hear you just fine. It also sounds like I'm hearing Sonic the Hedgehog. It
Sorry,
Yeah.
he's also playing that in the background. The reason why I stayed on because I thought you cut off. Well, it sounded like you cut off again.
yeah, I don't think I did, but can your cousin turn that game down by any chance?
Yes, he can.
We need to get him some headphones.
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, where were we?
Jim, let me present. I've presented this before, and it's an alternative to the kind of
Forget how
capitalism
sensitive this mic
we have
is.
now. That it essentially converts capitalism into an economic system that serves society rather than a system that just makes too many people way too rich and powerful. And like the idea is so basic. So like it's based on what Paul Newman has been doing with Newman's Own since 1982. Is that like a company, let's say, who wants to finance medical research or climate change research and all, they'll manufacture a product. So let's say you go to the supermarket, you want to buy some ketchup. You've got Hunt's, Heinz, maybe the store brand, and then you've got this like
Know
medical
me, I
research.
would buy the store brand.
Yeah, well, not, but WSD like this product actually would cost the exact same as the store brand, right? Should be a low cost, the lowest cost, and will taste as
Actually,
good.
store I find that the store brand is cheaper. But yeah,
No, no. So this product can be as cheap as the store brand because like the product isn't intended to make profit for shareholders. So in other words,
yeah,
like if it makes a bit less, it's still doing good because like the money isn't going toward very rich people to make them richer and control the government more. So WSD, the idea is like at the supermarket, this medical research or yeah, medical research ketchup costs the same and tastes the same as the lowest price, and so like, and on the label it says, if you buy this product, 100% of the profits is going to be donated to medical research, and they can get really specific, so that at the supermarket every time, and there could be thousands of these products, so like every time, that means every time we shop for stuff we need, we could be funding the kinds of causes that our government isn't funding enough because the Republicans and certain parties and the rich aren't allowing us to. And so like the more of these products are out there, the less money in profits and product profits is going to the rich, and so the less money they have to control our politics.
Yeah, and I
yeah.
agree with George on this one. I've read his book, Climate Rescue Capitalism, and it really is a brilliant idea because, to the extent that we're still under a capitalist system, using the system to fight climate change is a wonderful idea. And it's funny you use ketchup as an example, George, because it just so turns out that there are two brands of ketchup at Hy-Vee that I've bought regularly. But lately I've been buying the one that says something on it about feeding hungry children or something. And I do that one because it actually sometimes it's actually cheaper than the Hunt's version, but the fact that they're saying that they're feeding hungry children or whatever it is it actually says on it, it gives me incentive to buy that one. So I noticed that.
Exactly. And Chandler, with that product, chances are they might be giving 5, 10% to feeding hungry children, right? But imagine if
Yeah,
they start giving 100% of their profits. So in other words, like, the owners, they still have to, the people who work there still have to get a salary, and you still get
yeah,
some kind of compensation for owning a company like that, but it's nothing near, the obscene levels of wealth that these corporations have, like the oil industry and, food
yeah,
market.
Yeah, that's very important because yeah, if they keep the operation small, that's one thing. Is if an operation is kept small by reducing costs in other ways, then that also allows them to make their products cheaper, but also donate a large percent, or I mean, ideally, like you're saying, 100% of their profits. Which that basically, if I understand correctly, means that they all get their salary, but anything left over besides their salary gets donated to causes.
That's exactly it. And Paul Newman has been doing this since '82. He's donated over $450 million to thousands of charities through this means. So it's been tested. It works.
My question would be, why is Paul Newman one of few, basically? Because there's not many companies that are kind of engaged in this kind of business setup. So why is that, do you think?
David, my answer to that is the same answer as like, why are there like say 2 billion people on the planet who live on less than $2, $3 a day, and their kids are dying at a rate of 30,000 more each day? Not enough people care. If people cared about this, they
mm-hmm.
would see Newman's doing this. We could do this cross board. People just and again, like who better than we know that they're not to blame. That humanity's like quite immoral in certain ways.
Stingy, more likely,
Okay,
is to say the
greedy,
word.
selfish, yeah, whatever, yeah. But
Yeah, however you put it, the main point is that a lot of people just don't care. And so if you were to compare like how many people actually donate to charities of any type and how many people, I mean, yeah, however it may look, consider how few vegans there are in the world, for example. And I think that's an important point because after all, that is one of the ultimate ways to stop climate change is eliminating the animal industry and all the methane and carbon dioxide that produces.
absolutely, absolutely. So like, and also in terms of like, let's say with food products, a lot of these companies could care less what's in their products, whether they hurt consumers, whatever, the health and all. Whereas these products, these new products, would also have that as a concern. They wouldn't put, unhealthy ingredients in the products because they care about people. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about profit for them.
Yeah, and that's important because for me, like I
Except for Coca Cola, because you've seen what was in that. One of the reasons why I don't drink that.
yeah, one thing is particularly interesting is like high fructose corn syrup is one of those things I've learned to avoid because it does not make me feel good if I consume something with high fructose corn syrup.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and it's like that corn syrup is in so many products, and there's way too much sugar in a lot of products. There's way too much salt, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and the companies don't care because they simply don't care. They're not accountable to
It's
anyone.
profit first,
Yeah,
your health second.
yeah, and it's interesting because one thing, George, is that under a system like people often blame the consumers for choosing to buy unhealthy products. And aside from the fact that we already know free will doesn't exist and you can't blame anyone, there's something else people need to consider. If 100% or even 90%, even most of the products in a store are containing unhealthy food, then how in the world does somebody uh, pick out of all the mess? They're finding a needle in a haystack of food to buy. That's something to be concerned with, and that's a big part of the obesity problem.
Yep.
And
And
people,
another problem is they make the healthier foods cost more than the non-healthy. fast food and all that.
Oh
Mm.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The
because
government.
like I said, I would like to eat healthier, but problem is, when I go there, I go to the store trying to eat healthier, and I see that price, and I see my budget, I'm like, yeah,
I know. And Joe,
yeah,
the problem is that the same people who have stock in the food companies also have stock in the healthcare industry. So in other words, like they'll make money by making us sick. They'll make, by selling us these products and make us sick, and they'll make money by treating us when we're sick. I mean, it's just so wrong. So
Yeah, I often compare something like that to what people often say about religion, how it tries to infect you with the disease by telling you you're the rotten sinner going to hell, and then it tries to sell you the cure. And if you just follow the money, you'll see that they do profit off of their system. And it's the same with, food companies and stuff, like what George is saying.
Yeah, I think this could have been related to free will as well. I mean, it's all about the idea of people feeling like they deserve what they've earned, kind of a thing, you know.
yeah,
And I think that's to do with the belief in free will. If you believe that you have free will, then everything you do is down to how good you are. You know, if you earn those $1 billion, then that's a product of you and your hard work. You know, forget about everyone else. I deserve the billion
yeah. But
dollars.
what if they were born into that lifestyle? That's
Right,
what I'm
right.
saying.
Exactly, exactly. You got a bunch of people out there who own private companies who are making millions of dollars, yet they don't really take into account the fact that tax dollars from all of us help to pay for, say, like the roads where they transport their goods and services.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we all kind of invested in them, and they come along, they start a factory or a company, and they make their millions of dollars, and they kind of come out and they say, "Look what I've done! I've made millions of dollars." But you've done it off the back of everyone else, and a lot of these people who make a lot of money, they're quite selfish. I mean, studies have shown
Sorry
that
about that.
the more money you have, the more likely you are to cheat and be dishonest. So it's kind of like an infection. The more you get, the worse it becomes. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
it's
and David, you're also completely right about the free will thing. In other words, like what we were doing some weeks ago when we were on Daily Kos posting about free will, we were explaining to people, hey, this is like the foundation of the Conservative Party and the Republican Party ideology. They blame the poor for being poor, and they justify this obscene wealth of the super rich by claiming they have free will. So with any hope at all, it's even though we were putting it out there before this election November, and so like it wouldn't really be very reasonable for the Democrats to champion this knowledge now, but with any luck, they were paying attention, and like, goodness willing, after Hillary's elected and she takes office in January 2017, then maybe, the Democrats, the progressives will just like understand the utility of like, exposing this free will myth in order to weaken this ideology that condones, such wealth and that blames such poverty.
Oh yeah. And George, here's an interesting point because both you and David brought up excellent points. And that even though we call this an impersonal opinion podcast, it is heavily related to free will. And so our listeners need to know we have our other podcast about free will, science, and religion, which is all over the place online. But there's something else I want you guys to consider. Now, we may not convince some people that free will is an illusion because it's, as you know, it's very hard to get people to understand the logic of that, even though we know it to be true. But we may still be succeed at convincing people that poverty and wealth are not the result of our free will, even though people may still attribute free will to people in certain other moral decisions or whatever. We could give examples of why how rich or poor you are is not your own free will, and you can't take credit or blame for it.
Chandler, that's an excellent point. If we kind of like just gear our message toward the practical value of that rather than the philosophical truth angle, we might have much further reach.
Yeah, I think that's important because it makes it more real and more practical. Because here's an idea. Now, let's suppose that there's a very successful person. Okay, let's say they're very successful and very rich, and it seems everything they do works. But then, let's say their parents at some point in their life become sick or disabled and can no longer work. Then those children, let's say that those children don't help their parents because they don't feel like their parents deserve it, because this person, let's say, they think they're great because I of my own free will became a millionaire, and so I deserve to keep my wealth, but my parents don't deserve anything because my father is ugly and my mom is whatever way, you know what I'm saying?
That's
Like,
kind of cruel.
it is cruel, but think about it. Look how disrespectful many children are to their parents.
Oh yeah, because well, this is a little off topic, but I remember I was walking down in North Philly, waiting for the bus to go to work in the morning, and these young kids, it was like five of them, and these punk kids just decided, no, let's punch him in the back of his head for no reason
Wow.
from behind.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting about it, guys, is like there are so many children, and this happens with teenagers, but it also progresses.
Bad parents is like a part of that also, but yeah, that's another
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah, yeah, and okay, Leah, just to be clear, some parents really are not good parents, and I will definitely.
Oh yeah, what gave it away?
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of people have had parents that did not give them a great start in life. But you know something? One thing that I think is that, a lot of people had parents that, although all parents make mistakes, they did give their child a pretty good start in life. They took care of them. They helped
They at least
educate.
tried, basically.
Yeah, they certainly tried. And see, here's how I feel about it, guys, is that even though I know that I don't have a free will, obviously, I feel like, and the way I used to feel years ago, and still feel this way on some level, is that I do feel like I have a responsibility to take care of my mother. And here is why I feel this
Yeah.
way. Because let's get it straight, she took care of me since I was a baby, not just in the usual ways of feeding me, changing my diapers, and all that, but she also homeschooled me, and I did not attend public high school. And so
Oh,
my mother has
huh.
been a huge influence on my life. And so I don't expect to ever say, well, my life if is great because I chose my free will to be great, and then say, well, my mother doesn't matter, she's just an idiot. Because even if there are things that I may disagree with my mother on, the main point is that I would not be where I am today without my mother. And so in a certain practical sense, not fundamental but practical, I owe her. I sort of owe her because in a way she helped make me the person I am today. And if she hadn't raised me, and say if she had aborted me, for example, which she wouldn't have done because she's not that way, then I wouldn't be
Hmm.
here. And so I have to say that to the extent that anyone credits me, even though I don't deserve the credit, and nobody deserves credit or blame, I won't let them try to credit me without also mentioning that my mother, if I get any credit, so does my mother, because I wouldn't be here without her. And so I think children need to have a little bit more respect for their parents who did play a role in their life, but without necessarily saying it's fundamental respect, because we know no one chose anything.
Yeah,
Chandler,
I agree
yeah.
with you on that. But then again, yeah, I agree. But it's like I said, there's been times where I'm thinking, like, these parents, man, these days, it's not always the kid's fault. It's not always the parents' fault. But at the same time, most of these parents, man, they need to do a lot better.
Oh yeah, for
I'm
sure.
sorry, they got to do better than what they're doing. I can name one off the top of my head, but I ain't gonna mention no names.
Yeah. Oh, I so know what you guys mean because come on.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people have abusive parents and like just a personal example is my father was not so great. Well, we can put it that way. He was abusive. He would hit my mom. He divorced us and never paid child support and so a lot of the poverty that I've been in my life definitely has to do with my father, and so that's the kind of a thing is that I don't have anything to do with him because to a certain extent, how willing you are to associate with your parents does have to do with whether or not they were a good parent. But I will say that knowing that he didn't have a free will and didn't choose to be the monster that he is means that I can't really hate him, nor do I seek revenge on him anymore.
Yeah, and Chandler, that is such a huge gift. It doesn't make everything perfect, but I think for all of our lives, we have people who have disappointed us, who've betrayed us and stuff. And to the extent we overcome this belief in free will, we don't have a reason to feel angry with them, or blame them, and that really helps us. Yeah.
It really does because I used to hate my father and I used to hate my sister a lot too. And so even though of course me with this new revelation hasn't changed them, it has changed me for the better.
Yeah, well, hopefully, like over the next decade or so, because apparently this is going to take a bit longer than we thought it might when we started. But hopefully people will come around and say, hey, this is going to like make everybody's life better because that's exactly why we're doing this.
Yeah, and David was totally right that the capitalistic system is based off of free will because you sort of have to believe that people deserve their wealth in order to in order for them to just accumulate wealth the way they do at any cost and the people who are hurt they blame them and it's like oh it's your fault you're poor and so yeah there's so much free will blaming and crediting that happens within capitalism that I think the more that people understand that people don't choose their status in life, the more socialistic it becomes, or more even eventually towards a resource-based economy. I'm hoping.
And we need to do that quick.
Oh yeah, because as far as I can tell, guys, is America the way it's currently going is going
And
down the tubes.
hopefully we won't get an idiot in the White House.
Yeah, and it's that's an interesting thing, but what it sounded, yeah, like earlier, it does sound like the senators are just as important as what president you get, and which I think is interesting
Yep.
because there's a lot of more hype about the president than there is the other smaller offices in politics.
Yeah, another problem with senators is because it has become so expensive to launch a campaign for the Senate that both parties actively recruit people to run for the Senate who are very rich, who can at least in part fund their own campaign. So, like, that just makes more and more more rich people in control of our government. I mean, this whole campaign finance thing needs a complete overhaul.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like first of all, get money out of politics.
Exactly. That's the key. We get money out of politics, we can fix what's wrong. Until we do that, we're very limited in what we can do.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And so, yeah, there are definitely some problems with capitalism, and that needs to change. But we can also, in the meantime, use some climate rescue capitalism and try to get money out of politics too. And we're approaching 40 minutes, guys. And so, yeah, I do need to end this episode and eat, take my shower, and get to bed. But this has been great, and I hope you guys
Yep.
enjoyed.
Yeah, thanks, Chandler. It's been excellent.
All right.
yeah,
Alrighty.
good job.
You've been listening to the Impersonal Opinion Podcast, and the co hosts have been talking about capitalism and climate rescue capitalism and some politics related stuff. And it's been a very good discussion. And we even mentioned a little bit of free will, even though this isn't actually our main podcast where we discuss that. So this should have been educational, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening and goodbye.